Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Um, I want to introduce you to this sort of virtual way. Usually we would be doing this in person. We would be in an office building somewhere. We'd have tables, we'd have chips, we'd have all sorts of goodies and snacks, and we would all be making phone calls together. Unfortunately, the way this one's going to work is that we're all going to be making calls independently from where we're at, and you can use your desktop, smartphone, or if you have like an iPad, for example, to interact with the program that we're using. It's a new program for us. And is there anything you want to say to kick us off as far as the introduction to the GOTV program?
Um, I think you touched on it really well, just that this is the first time that we've opened this program up to volunteers because we recognize the really the power in being able to connect with community at this time and to reach voters from a volunteer basis. And so again, I just wanted to reiterate that we really appreciate you participating, and we'll get more into this when we start going through the process, but just talking a little bit about who we're reaching out to. So there are a couple different, we call them universes, but we are planning on targeting and talking to CVI members, infrequent voters, so folks who have voted but maybe don't vote every time. And then we have the bilingual Latinx universe as well for people who are voters but also maybe don't vote every year. And so we just really appreciate you all participating. And with that, we can, launch into the software.
And I think I'm going to start with the landing page that everybody's going to see.
And as we walk through too, if people want to follow along and start logging into the process, you're very much invited to do that so that you're following along with our screen.
Right. So everybody, if you don't have an EveryAction account, which if this is the first time you've done phone banking or worked with the van software, you probably won't. And if you go on that link, this is what you're going to see here. Hopefully my screen is showing what it needs to. But this is the landing page. So it talks a little bit about what we're doing. We have a video in case you get stuck and you need to review like the steps as far as like how to log in. But these three buttons down here are the universes that Anne just talked about. So we have our members. Those are people who have signed up to CVI emails, maybe signed some of our petitions, I should say. And this is the smallest universe. So really where we're going to have folks make the most calls or opt in the most is between the infrequent voters universe and the Spanish speaking voters universe. And a quick side note about these universes, at least the Spanish speaking voters universe, we use an algorithm to decipher who is Spanish speaking, who is Latinx, but it's not perfect. More often than not, you'll get somebody who is, but about 30% of the time, I would say, there's a chance that they just have a name that the algorithm thinks is Latinx, but it may be somebody who recently became a US citizen, who has an immigrant background, whose language might still be predominantly a different language other than English. And so I just wanted to highlight that note that, you know, it's not like every single person in this list is going to be Spanish speaking. And we have also a lot of folks who are Latinx that don't speak Spanish, but that's sort of like the algorithm we use to create this universe. And we've been making calls to this universe for a while now. What also you'll see here is just a couple of different resources. We have a FAQ page, and then we also have the scripts. It's, for me, like if you have two screens or you have the ability to split your screen, for me, it's more helpful to have the script on another side and have the window where I'm making phone calls on the other side. That's just because the script is really a reference point for you. You don't have to go through it like word for word every single time. A lot about something that I've learned about phone banking is that it's also a lot about listening. You know, we're calling people who may not get these calls very often, and they may be surprised. Right now, we have a pandemic going on, and people, you know, are worried about a lot of different things. And so what we're trying to do is provide a resource. We're not here to sway people like vote for this candidate or vote for this party. What we're trying to give people is information and resources like, here's where you can go to vote. This is where if you wanted to vote today, you could go to this place. If you wanted to vote on November 3rd, you can go to this place. And so before you start making calls, go ahead and take a little bit of time to like get really familiar with the FAQ page so you can like know what information is available there. And then also get to know the script. And you'll see that the script is broken up if you click on one of these links on the left and right side, and I'll do it for you right now. And so it has like different elements as far as like why we're saying what we're saying in these different pieces. The first thing being that we definitely want to identify the caller. We want to make sure that we're speaking to the person that's on our list, because we're going to be marking whether or not that person is going to vote if they've already voted, and that will tie into their specific profile. Sometimes you'll get somebody and it'll be like, for example, like sometimes I'll call somebody and their mom will pick up, right? I can still have a conversation with them, but I can't necessarily mark it as that person's going to vote because I didn't actually have a conversation with them. And so that's just sort of like a quick tidbit. We were going to go more deep into the script, but I just wanted to show you really quickly what's available on this page. And so I'm going to start going here. And this is like the first screen you're going to see. For folks who don't have an account yet, when you hit get started, you're going to see this page and you're going to want to create an Action ID account. If you already have one, go ahead and log in. But if for the most part, people here won't have it, so you're going to create an account. And all you need is an email address, your name, a phone number, and a password. So I know that's a little bit of a barrier for some folks, but unfortunately that is the way this phone bank is going to work. And how Anne was saying, if you want to create that account right now, you definitely can. Okay. So I already created an account. So I'm going to go ahead and just like log in. And you're going to see this screen. And it's just going to let you know that you're good to go once you hit begin making calls. It's not going to immediately start dialing for you. You're going to see this screen. And this screen has part of the script, but it also has a lot of great information, such as the name of the person I'm calling. So for example, I don't think this person is going to be a Spanish speaker. I think this is one of the people that the algorithm got wrong. But this person's in Bingham County. Their polling location for the November 3rd election is Aberdeen, American Legion Hall, which I think is a really common place when we've done phone banking in the past. At the top, it's a little hard to see maybe on my screen, but you have Anne's contact information there. So any questions, any concerns, any hiccups with the software, Anne's going to be available to take your call or take your email. And like I said, it has the script down here. And we also have a section for notes. And this section is, I really like to use this section because anytime you have a conversation with somebody that's like really meaningful, there can be things that you'd like to share back. Or for example, if they prefer to speak Spanish, the options over here is around whether or not they'll be able to vote. And so we have a couple different responses that we can do. Yes is a solid like 100% I'm gonna vote. A no is 100% I'm not gonna vote. The maybe is sort of like the 50-50. Undecided is where they kind of don't really want to answer the question. And can't vote is a person believing that they can't vote in the upcoming election because either they're away. I've had people, sometimes families have to travel to work. And I had a conversation with somebody who had to travel to Canada and they didn't request their absentee ballot in time. And so that's a situation where that person can't vote. Or if they don't respond to that question, just go ahead and hit no response. And then you can do save or next call up here. Or if you weren't able to reach that person, you're gonna hit I couldn't reach Calvin. And the calls don't start until you hit this button here, call, and it'll connect to your desktop or smartphone or iPad. And if the first time you log in, it'll ask you to turn on your microphone. That like it has that permission to turn on your microphone.
I just wanted to add that, so you'll see my contact info, as Antonio mentioned. You're also welcome to text me. So I'll be making calls this evening as well, but you can reach me at any time and I can help you with tech problems, or if you want to, kind of workshop anything or have any other questions, you're welcome to reach out to me at any time and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can.
So I think the bilingual script is maybe the most complex looking. And so I want to go through this one really quick. And I think a lot of the people who are joining us today will be making calls here. And so what we have is a couple questions right off the top. We want to make sure that we're talking to the person that we need to talk to. So while the script says hello is a voter name there, often the way that I speak, I'll say it like, hi, I was hoping to reach Adan or Fulano. And then they'll say like, oh, this is him, or let me go get him. And then once I have Fulano on the phone, I'll say, hi, Fulano, I'll introduce myself. Feel free to introduce yourself as your organization, right? Like, so for me, I'm Conservation Voters for Idaho, but also it's really great to help people realize that you're local. So I'll say I'm calling from Boise, or if it's like really out in the rural area, I'll say I'm calling from Nampa, just because that's where I grew up. And I think that people are usually a little bit more open to talking to somebody from Nampa if it's a rural area. And especially if I think that they're struggling with the English, I'll ask, hey, is English good for you? También puedo comunicarme con usted en español. And usually people are either relieved or they'll let you know, like, no, English is fine. And you can have the rest of the conversation using the English script, or you can have it using the Spanish script. And so the Spanish script is exactly the same as the English script. It just doesn't have that beginning piece, because for the most part, most of the folks that we talk to end up being English speakers, but there are a few, I want to say about 9% of the people in our universe will prefer to speak Spanish. And next, you can let them know that, hey, I know you're a registered voter and you voted in one of the last 4 elections, and we want to make sure that we thank you for that. That's a really good thing that you're registered to vote and you're voting. And then we want to talk about a personal reason why we vote. And towards the end of the workshop, we're gonna do that. We're gonna start to identify what are those like personal reasons and stories why people vote. And in this case, it'll be your personal reason. Or maybe it's like, I can't vote, so that's why I'm calling voters, to make sure that those folks who are able to vote use that privilege to this November. So we're open to be making these calls all the way up until Friday for early voting, but we'll have another set of calls and another script for GOTV, which is like that November 3rd. So right now you can vote until Friday for early voting in a lot of places, but once it becomes next week, you can only vote, like your last opportunity to vote is November 3rd.
But the answer is that you can still come to this webpage and that it will be updated. So you could make them on Saturday or Sunday. It would just look slightly different. So anytime that works for you, it will just be modified. But yes, thank you, Antonio.
No, thank you, Anne, for that clarification. We want to, after we, talk about our personal reason why we're voting, we want to ask the question, will you be able to vote in this election? And they'll say, everything from, yeah, I'm definitely going to vote, to no, or like, I don't think I can. I don't know where. Can I vote today? Can I vote by mail? People will have different responses, and that's where this script like breaks up. because if people say no, you want to make sure, we listen to any reasons they have. Maybe they need a ride, maybe they need some more information. And if they say yes, we want to let them know that there are a lot of people voting right now from the area that they live in. And right now we are seeing like so many people either voting early and voting by mail all across Idaho. We're like breaking records. And then we want to, if they don't tell us exactly like how they're going to vote, we want to make sure that we help them along with like, are you planning to vote absentee? Are you planning to vote early or in person on election day? And for each one of those responses, we have a different response for them. So absentee, awesome. Make sure it gets there by November 3rd, 8 p.m. is the deadline for that, and that's also in the FAQ. And we can check to see, where their county clerk's office is, because all of the county clerk's offices have a drop-off location. If they decide to vote early, the FAQ has a link to all of the counties and where those folks can do early voting and what times, and even the addresses. So, we can definitely share that information back to them. And that's just going to be like so much easier because they're not going to have to look it up for themselves and try to have to find that. And then we have, in-person voting. And like, for example, in this case, we actually can give them their polling location. It doesn't have like the address on it here, but if you're able, a quick Google search will usually give you the exact address. So I like to have like a couple different tabs open. And if folks want to do that, I do think it's a good way to go about it. This whole section here is for the in-person voting on November 3rd. And we want to let them know that, masks are not required, and it's true, they aren't required, but they are encouraged for the safety of everybody who's voting. And we want to make sure, right, that we get a little bit more details, like when do you plan on voting during the day? Because it's going to be easier for people to vote in the early morning and in the like early afternoon. After 5 p.m., that's where we see a lot of people get off work and like go there, and that's when the lines get long, and that's when people have to wait usually a little bit at least to vote. But we, like I said earlier, we are seeing a lot of people vote early, so hopefully that's not the case. But more people are voting in this election than ever before, so we want to make sure people have a good plan. And then at the end, we want to thank them. We want to make sure that they feel good that they had this conversation, and that we can have this conversation afterwards once all of the results are in as far as who voted and who didn't, and that they are on the side of like people who did vote in this election. Does Idaho require that employers give folks time off to vote? I don't believe so.
As long as you're in line by 8 p.m., then you're allowed to vote. So as long as you show up, then they won't turn you away. And then if you have questions that you come across that you don't know the answer to and you aren't able to find that online, you can offer to write down their information and we can follow up with that info. I don't anticipate that will happen, but if that's the case, then you can pass that on to me and I will do my best to find some info and follow up. That would be my suggestion.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Such a great tidbit. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and transition to a quick slideshow here. We already talked a little bit about how our work is not for candidates. It's not necessarily for people to vote in a particular way. We just want to make sure we give folks the information. And so a couple people said Ruby pointed you in this direction. The ACLU has a hotline for people like the example that Tony just brought up in the chat. What happens if you're in line, by 8 p.m. and they start maybe telling people that they have to go away? Well, the ACLU has a voter rights hotline for those kinds of scenarios. And I'm gonna make sure that this is in the FAQ. And the information that that I would encourage everybody to share is why voting is important and leading with your values, right? Like, what is it about right now that led you to even making these phone calls and led you to like be in this training and join us today for phone banking, right? Definitely lead with that. And one thing that I want to quickly go over, and this is in the FAQ as well, is that there are certain things that people will, I think, information that makes you feel really comfortable when you make these calls, right? And some of that information is who's even eligible to vote in Idaho. And that's a US citizen. You do have to be a US citizen to vote in any of our Idaho elections. You had to have lived in Idaho in the county that you're voting in for at least 30 days. So that's a really big one for college students. A lot of times you'll run into people saying like, oh, I'm not sure if I can vote because I'm a college student. But really, the only requirement for you being a resident is to have lived in the county for at least 30 days. Right, absolutely. And the only thing that bars people from voting is if they have a felony conviction that they're currently serving a sentence on. But as soon as they finish any kind of probation, any kind of sentencing, their voting rights are automatically restored. They don't get a letter, they don't get an email, they don't get a text. It just happens automatically. And so we have seen that, and that's also in the FAQ of how to handle that conversation and what you can say if you do run into that. And the last bit is that you do have to be 18 on or before election day. So election day is November 3rd. If they are 18 on November 2nd, then yes, they can vote, but they'll have to register in person, and they'll have to bring proof of residence, such as mail with their name and address on it, and some kind of photo ID that just like confirms that they are who they say they are. And that's also in the FAQ. So after this call, after we're done workshopping everything, I will encourage everybody to just like look over that. There might be some useful information that like might surprise you a little bit, but definitely there for people to look at as a resource. Okay. Do I have any questions before we jump into this bit? Hopefully I answered your questions, Tony, in a good way. Thank you for being here with us. Okay. So basically what I'd like to say with this piece, when we're talking to voters, especially voters who don't vote very often and don't get outreach to very often, there's two pieces of information that I really try to hold on to as we're having those conversations. And one is that they may have already heard like a couple reasons why voting is important. And they're sort of like these generic reasons that we all hear, right? Through really quick TV ads or social media posts of like, your vote is your voice. And, it's really important that everybody vote and everybody's vote counts. But at the same time, there are some more like personal reasons why you might be feeling how you're feeling about voting. And I would encourage you to sort of examine those and share those as far as how voting affects you in real life. And I'll go through a couple of different examples. And then the other part is listening. A lot of times people will already have, feelings around voting. Maybe, they tried it once and it didn't work. And those are really valid experiences. It's so important that we make space for people as far as how they feel about voting in elections, if we want to actually have a conversation with them where they ultimately decide that maybe they'll turn out and vote this election. And so I want to share just some examples of how you can sort of tie in very quickly a personal reason without like having to tell like a very like long story. because people sometimes don't want to be on the phone for very long. And so the first example is just like a very generic first sentence. And it's just like, well, the reason why I think voting is important is because not everybody is eligible to vote. But I'm eligible to vote, and I have the opportunity to speak for those who can't. For example, I know a lot of people who have DACA, who are permanent residents, who are asylum seekers or have U visas, and those folks can't vote. And it's important for me to use my privilege of just being born here in the US so that I can speak to the values and the needs of people in my community who find themselves in that situation. Another example, so like in this example, I just took, that first bit and then I tied my personal reason at the end. So let me just do one more because I think I'm going a little bit over time here. And maybe you guys get it, but the last one, decisions are being made by Idaho's elected officials that have directly affected us during the pandemic. This has personally affected me or someone I know because schools right now are a place where a lot of people who aren't eligible to vote, people who are under 18, currently have to either show up to school with a mask on and be in a position where they may not feel comfortable with that, or aren't getting what they need from their schools because schools are so strained right now. And I need to make sure that I vote because the people who are making those decisions or not making those decisions are our elected officials. And so those are that's just like two examples of how you can take something that's like a little bit more of a generic term and tie in your personal reason or a experience that you've had for why you think voting is important.
Antonio, if everyone's okay with that, are you comfortable doing a call or two so everyone can see what it's like?
Yeah, so let me just get situated here. This is either gonna go really well or really poorly. What time is it? 5, okay. I have a good feeling about this. So unfortunately, you're not gonna be able to see my screen because, or actually, let's see if I can take this. So this is what the other screen looks like. Computer. So this person's name is Cassandra Trujillo. And I'm actually going to ask everybody to mute just in case we get some audio here that we don't need for this call. And so you can see right now it says not connected, and I haven't started yet, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to minimize this other window so I have the bilingual script.
You have reached the voicemail box of 2.
So in that case, I couldn't reach her, so I'm going to go ahead and hit couldn't reach Cassandra. And this is the list of dispositions. We didn't get a chance to go over this, but it's pretty simple. We have a couple different options here. Not home, refuse, deceased, moved, Spanish, callback, busy, left message, wrong number, do not call, and disconnected. In this case, the person just didn't answer. Not home, I think is
That's going to be a not home. Yep.
Yeah, is the most appropriate one. Sorry, we use Call Hub for other stuff, and this is the first time we're using these dispositions. So I'm going to go ahead and save next call. Hey, I made my first call. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead. This person's name is Maritza. I'm going to call Maritza. Hi, I was hoping to reach Maritza.
Yes, me.
Hi, Maritza. My name's Antonio Hernandez. I'm calling you from Boise. How are you today?
Oh, where are you going?
From Boise, Idaho. I'm calling voters to give them information so that we can make sure that they vote.
Oh, we already voted.
Oh, you already voted? That's so great. Thank you so much for voting.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions as far as how you can vote to share with anybody else?
No, not really. But all my family already voted.
So you voted early, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for voting.
Sure.
Have a great day.
Of course. You too. Thank you.
So I'm going to end that call, and I'm going to hit, she did vote, and I'm going to put in that voted early and said whole family voted. And I'm going to be real with you, most of the calls are going to go like that, right? People are going to say either they already voted or they took care of it already. But just in case, you know, they haven't, we have all of that information that we can give them. Why is it saying? Oh, okay. So I'm going to do one more just to, hopefully this one's a little longer. Yenalyn.
Hello.
Hi, I was hoping to reach Yenalyn.
This is she.
Hi, Yenalyn. My name's Antonio. I'm actually calling voters in your city because we're sharing information around voting.
I'm at work right now,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, I'm busy at work, so
Okay.
we'll just do it some other time.
Absolutely. We'll try to call you back at a later time.
Okay.
All
Bye.
All right, bye. So for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and put, actually, I'd love your input on this one, Anne. What is the best way to log this kind of call?
I would choose call back and just make a note that they were at work and it wasn't a good time.
So I'm gonna go ahead to do that. I'm gonna hit, I couldn't reach Yenalyn, and then I'm gonna hit call back. Oh, before that, can I still log a note? Before that, I'm gonna hit cancel to log a note. Say, was at work. And call back. Let's do another one just for fun. Sylvester Gongora. And they're in Meridian.
Hello?
Hi, I was hoping to reach Sylvester.
This is.
Hi, Sylvester. My name's Antonio. I'm actually calling you from Boise and calling voters to make sure that they have what they need to vote in the upcoming election.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We're actually in Washington, but we're actually moving back. So we submitted our vote through Washington.
Oh, so you voted absentee?
Say that again?
You voted by mail?
Yeah, so we ended up having to do it by mail here. And so we did it because we currently live in the state of Washington, but we're relocating back to Idaho. And we're actually moving back tomorrow, which is kind of weird. But we ended up voting last week.
That's so great to hear. I'm glad you were able to vote in this election.
Yeah, definitely. Super excited about it as well, too. And really excited moving back to Idaho as well, too.
Awesome, Sylvester. Well, I'll go ahead and mark here that you voted already. Thank you so much for voting.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. You have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So for that one, I'm going to go down to options. I'm going to say that they did vote. We can count on them voting. And I'm going to say voted by mail. I don't really have to include the Washington stuff. You can if you want to, but for these notes, I'm just going to go ahead and say that they just voted. And I'm going to hit save and next call. So I'm going to do my shift here, in a second. I encourage everybody to look over the FAQ and the notes. And I've never moved my webcam before, so this is new. How do people feel about doing phone banking? Sylvester was really nice. Like, that was, he's a really nice guy.
I'm so glad we were able to get a hold of a couple people.
Yeah.
I feel sometimes like when I do a demo, I just get a bunch of no answers, and then it's hard to convey. Those were great.
Yeah, and so, try to listen as far as like if folks, if you feel like they really could use the help in Spanish, if there's something kind of like particular, phone banking, I would say like a lot of it is listening, at least in my experience. And so, and then a lot of it is very short and brief. I already voted. Oh, I just need this one piece of information. Correct. You can select in that main screen before you go into like setting up an account, the CVI page, what universe you want to call in, right? We give people, we're trying to give people the option, and we're going to try to include some more universes if we run out of folks to call, but that's kind of going to be like the main hub for like updated information.
So your phone number will not be associated in any way. So it should make it directly through the browser, and then it should show up as a phone number associated with VPB Connect, the program that we're using. So you don't have to call in, and it shouldn't interact with your personal information in that way at all.
All right, well, thank you all so much. Remember, Anne's contact info is available on that page. And yeah, let us know how it goes.